They tell me I slept for 70 years. It didn't feel like sleep. Sleep is supposed to be restful. You dream, you turn over. You wake up and for a second, you don't know where you are, but then your room comes into focus and everything's. Okay, this was nothing. It was a blink that lasted a lifetime. One moment. The next, I'm hearing a baseball game from 1941 that I know damn well isn't live. And a nice woman in a uniform is telling me I'm in a recovery room. Recovery. That's a word that sticks with you. What exactly am I recovering from? The crash? The war? Or just from being out of step with the whole damn world? When they debriefed me. What did it feel like? Was there pain, ecstasy? Did I see God? They wanted the grand spectacle. They got notebooks ready for some profound, life-altering revelation. It wasn't like that. Not really. The truth is, the most life-altering moment didn't happen in Dr. Erskine's lab. It happened in a drafty recruiting office in Brooklyn for the 5th time. The guy behind the desk didn't even look up at me. Son, we're looking for soldiers, not asthmatics. He had a coffee stain on his tie. I remember that. ID memorized the pattern of cracks on the ceiling by my 4th try. That's the thing they never put on the posters. Captain America's first and most honed skill was persistence in the face of being told no. That's who I was. Steve Rogers from 4H Apartment 6B, with a list of ailments longer than my grocery list, and a sketchbook full of things I thought were probably better than me. I was just a guy who hated bullies. It's a simple thing, really. You see a big guy pushing around a little guy and something in you it doesn't compute. It's wrong. An equation that doesn't balance. And I guess I'd been on the wrong side of that equation enough times to know which side I wanted to be on, even if I didn't have the muscle to back it up. I'd get into these fights. Stupid. Losing battles in alleys, behind movie theaters. Buck would find me. Why do you keep doing this, Steve? You can't win. And I'd spit blood on the pavement and say, I can do this all day. It wasn't bravado. It was just a fact. The winning or losing wasn't the point. The point was getting back up. The point was making the bully know that for every time he knocked you down, he'd have to do it again. You could never just win and walk away clean. I was a problem that had to be continually solved. Then Dr. Erskine found me. He saw that list of ailments, and he didn't see a lost cause. He saw a control group. He saw a man who had spent a lifetime being weak, and in doing so had built a different kind of strength. A strength of character. He asked me if I wanted to kill Nazis. I told him I didn't want to kill anyone. I just didn't like bullies. He liked that answer. In that, he wasn't just scared the procedure wouldn't work. He was scared of what it would create if it did. He leaned in close. His voice quiet, just for me. The serum, he said. It will make you more of what you already are. Good becomes great. Bad becomes worse. He looked at me. Really looked at me. This is why you were chosen. Because a strong man who has known. Then they strapped me in. And it hurt. It wasn't a poetic hurt. It was a tearing burning. Like every cell in my body was being ripped apart and stitched back together with fire. I screamed. I'm not ashamed to admit it. I think I passed out. And when I woke up, everything was more. The world was louder, brighter, sharper. I could hear the heartbeat of the nurse 3 rooms away. And I saw myself in the reflection of the glass. This giant, this stranger wearing my face. They were all clapping. General Phillips looked like he'd seen a ghost. And then, of course, the Hydra spy ruined the party. Erskine, he died in front of me. That kind, brilliant, frightened man, he died because of what he made me. His last words were to me, don't become a soldier, don't let them make you into just another bully. What did I do next? I ran. For the first time in my life, I could actually run. I could run. I caught that spy on the waterfront. It was instinct. It was anger. It was grief. I felt the power coursing through me, this new, terrifying energy, and I used it. And when I stood there, holding the fake cyanide capsule, I realized something. The power didn't change the mission. It just gave me the tools to finally finish the fight. The bully was still a bully. I was just big enough to stop him now. But then the real irony started. They didn't know what to do with me. A super soldier who'd seen actual combat for about 30 seconds before his creator was killed. So they put me in a costume. Captain America. A song and dance man. They sent me on a USO tour. Me and a bunch of girls in spangly outfits, Wednesday go from city to city. ID come out on stage. They'd play a fanfare. And ID punch a papier. Memshi Hitler in the jaw. The crowd would go wild. ID smile. ID wave. ID feel like the biggest fraud in the world. I was selling war bonds. I was a symbol. But back in Brooklyn, ID seen the symbols. They were on posters. They were meant to inspire you to go do something. I wasn't inspiring anyone to do anything but buy more bonds. Meanwhile, real men were dying on real fronts. Bucky was over there, the one who'd always pulled me out of alleys. He was in Italy, in France, in the mud and the blood, and I was in a bright blue suit with red leather boots, telling bad jokes. The shows felt like a different kind of alley. A bigger, brighter, louder alley where I was getting beaten down every night, not with fists, but with applause. Every cheer felt like a jeer. They were celebrating the costume, the idea. They weren't celebrating me. How could they? They didn't know me. Steve Rogers was still that little guy from Brooklyn, screaming on the inside of this monument. The turning point was in Italy, a USO show for the 107th. The men, they weren't cheering. They were sullen, tired, broken. They'd seen real war. They didn't need a cartoon character. I saw it in their eyes, the resentment. And I couldn't blame them. Idea felt the same. Then I talked to that one colonel. He told me the 107th was lost behind enemy lines. Bucky, in that moment. Every bit of frustration, every feeling of being a fraud, every ounce of guilt, it crystallized into one single clear point: action. I wasn't going to be a song and dance man anymore. I wasn't going to follow orders. General Phillips said it was a suicide mission. He wasn't wrong. But what was the alternative? Let those men die. Let Bucky die. While I did a show in Naples, that wasn't a choice. She was the only one who ever looked at me. Really looked and saw both things at once. She saw the super soldier and she saw the skinny kid who didn't know how to talk to a dame. She didn't see a symbol. She saw a man, and she trusted that man to do the right thing. Walking into that Hydra factory with just a shield and a stolen uniform, that was the first time I ever felt like Captain America. Not on a stage, not in a lab, in the field. Making a choice, using the power, not finding Bucky, that was a moment of pure, unadulterated joy. Quickly followed by cold, hard fear. He was alive. But we were surrounded. And he looked at me, this giant in a strange costume. And he said, "I thought you were smaller." And for a second I was just Steve again, his friend. And then we were soldiers, back to back, fighting our way out. It was the way it was always supposed to be. The Howling Commandos, they were my family. Because I would never, ever ask them to do something I wouldn't do myself. We were a team, we were brothers. Dugan, with his ridiculous mustache and his steady aim. Marita, smart and fierce. Falsworth, with his proper English accent that he could turn off in a second to curse like a sailor. We were a band, but every victory felt like it brought us closer to Schmidt, to the Red Skull. Seeing him, it was like looking into a dark mirror. Erskine's serum worked on him too. It made him more of what he was. A megalomaniac. A fanatic. He had the power, but none of the heart. He looked at humanity and saw something to be ruled, or crushed. Had lost all compassion. He was the soldier Skine had feared. He was what I could have been. Losing Bucky, that's a pain the serum can't fix. No amount of super healing can stitch that wound shut. I see it every time I close my eyes. The train, the snow, the metal rail giving way, his hand slipping from mine. I had the strength to lift a motorcycle one-handed, but I didn't have the strength to hold on to my best friend. I screamed his name into that frozen gorge, and the wind just swallowed it. There was no echo. Just nothing. That's the burden they don't tell you about. It's heavier than any shield. It's a coldness that gets into your bones, deeper than any Arctic ice. The final fight with Schmidt, it was almost a relief, a clarity. It was him and me in his crazy world, ending plain. He was babbling about gods and new worlds. I didn't care about any of that. I just knew he was a bully with a bigger stick than any bully before him, and he had to be stopped. When the Tesseract opened up whatever it opened and vaporized, he was so full of hate, so full of his own grand destiny. And then he was just gone. Not with a bang, but a whisper. A flash of blue light, and he was erased. But the plane was still going, still headed for New York. Millions of people. Peggy's voice was in my ear, calm and steady, but I could hear the fracture in it. The fear. She was giving me coordinates, telling me where to land this thing. And I looked at the ice on the windshield. I looked at There was no walking away from this one. This was the alley behind the movie theater. One last time. The bully was too big. The stakes were too high. The only move left was to make sure he couldn't walk away clean either. To get back up one last time and say, I can do this all day, and this time mean it forever. Peggy, she was talking about a dance. The Stork Club, 8 o'clock next Saturday. She'd be there. She was mapping out my future for me. A life I realized, with a terrible, crushing clarity, that I desperately wanted. A life with her. A slow dance. A piece. I'm gonna need a rain check on that dance, I said. It was the hardest thing I've ever had to say. Harder than any order to charge into gunfire. I could hear her crying. I could hear the static taking over. And then I put the plane down into the ice. The cold was instantaneous and absolute. It was like the world was slowly turning down the volume. The lights on the console flickered and went out. The shuddering of the metal stopped. Everything became still and quiet. I thought about Bucky. I thought about my mom. I thought about Dr. Erskine. I thought about Peggy's red lips and her smart uniform and the way she never ever treated me like anything less than an equal. I wasn't afraid. There was a sadness. Yeah, but there was also a peace. The equation was balanced. The bully was stopped. ID done my job. ID gotten back up one last time. Then the blink. And the baseball game from 1941. Now I'm here, in a future that feels like a science fiction story. They tell me we won the war. They have my uniform in a museum. They have videos of my USO show. They made comic books about me. They call me a hero, a legend. I look out the window of this new apartment they've given me. At a skyline that's all sharp, glassy edges. And I try to find a piece of the sky that looks familiar. I try to find the North Star, the one Bucky and I used to use to find our way home. But the lights of the city are too bright. You can't see the stars anymore. I'm home. But everyone I fought for is gone. The world I knew as a black and white photograph in a history book. And I'm still here in living color. A man out of time. The question is, what do you do when the war you gave everything for is over, and you're the only one left standing? What is Captain America without a war to fight? I guess he'll have to figure that out, one day at a time. After all, I can do this all day.